Okay, so strategic choices. This video and the next several videos are going to be about strategic choices on the arm wrestling table. So as you get further and further getting into serious arm wrestling competition, if you want to start winning matches and tournaments, especially against high, strong competitors, all the stuff I'm about to say is really going to start playing a role. Now, this is kind of funny, but for the most part, this is what arm wrestling is. Kevin's going to come up, I'm going to come up. This is what most arm wrestling matches are, okay? And I get it. Two guys come up or two girls come up, okay? And basically they just wait for the go. They wait for the ref to say go, and they just pull, okay? So Kevin's going against me, and I'm strong, so I'm going to defend that, and I'm going to get back into the match and kind of eventually hope that I get him all the way over and end up winning the match. And that, for the most part, even at tournaments, that's a lot of what arm wrestling is. There's not a lot of thought that goes into what's about to happen, and that's wrong. If you really want to win and compete, you can get a lot further and further into winning the match just by way of the choices that you're making when you're going up. If you're just going to go up and just react to the opponent on the go, that's not a very savvy approach to winning arm wrestling, and it'll only take you so far no matter how strong you are. Okay, so what I want to talk about in these videos is strategic choices. Now, the first choice I want to talk about is choosing your style. The first thing you have to do when you come up to the arm wrestling table, regardless of who the opponent is, you have to choose your style. Now, I talked about that a little bit already, which was the three styles that I broke it down into were attack, counterattack, or defensive style arm wrestling. Okay, and I'll give you a little bit of a recap in the next video, and then talk about that first aspect of strategic choices. The first one we're going to talk about is choosing your style. Okay, so the first choice I wanted to talk about was, in terms of strategic choices in arm wrestling, was choosing your style. Now, I wanted to recap the three styles of arm wrestling, which are attack, counterattack, and defensive style arm wrestling. Okay, so when you come up to the arm wrestling table, you have three. You can choose between those three styles, whether you're going to attack, counterattack, or be defensive with your opponent. Okay, and what those mean is if I'm attacking the opponent, that means I don't have any knowledge about this opponent. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what technique they're going to do. Okay? Attack would be try to force them into your dominant position. Okay? So we all have a dominant position. We all have a technique that we're strongest in, that if we could choose one technique to do, if we were going to win a match, that would be the one we'd go to. We all have them. So that would be attack arm wrestling. You're trying to force your opponent into your strongest, most dominant technique, and try to put them in their most vulnerable position, okay, if you don't know them. Now, counterattack is not like that at all. Counterattack arm wrestling would be where I know what technique the opponent's going to use. So if I know Kepa's going to come in and he's going to do a hook, he does a hook every single time, and I know he's setting up for that move, counterattack would be the choice. Counterattack would be the style I would choose, okay? And remember, just the quickest example of a counterattack was that high posting hook. So as Kepa comes in for his hook, this is all I mean by counterattack. Just to recap, okay? As he comes in to hook me, okay, I would just come up high, change levels, hook in here, and just come up over the top. But that would be a counter to his hook. So I wouldn't be focused on attacking. I would be focused on just countering his movement and then following through and hopefully turning that into a win. Okay, so that's totally different. If I know my opponent, I know what technique they're going to do, counterattack would be the right style to choose. That doesn't mean you can't attack them still. It just means you have a lot better chance of beating them if you know what they're going to do. You just counter their movement, take them into a bad position. Much, much higher efficiency, much less strength you have to use if you're countering effectively. Okay, important to remember. And then defensive style. So for the most part, defensive style arm wrestling should only be used by people that have trained for a long time in defensive style arm wrestling. You can't just choose to do that. But if you're going against someone who's really explosive or really, really fast, there may be a few positions where, let's say in defensive arm wrestling, I'll show you two. Let's say Kep and I are here. Okay, I know he's super explosive, piling on power this way, okay? You have to stop the match. A lot of times you're going to go against guys that can flash pin, meaning most of their wins come just wham. I mean, they can drop you in an instant. And if you can stop the match at any moment, if you can just stop them from bringing you down, regardless of what technique you get to do that, if you can stop the match, they're going to keep pressing down, 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 and you can just bleed them out until they get tired, okay? And then when they get tired, eventually you just bring them back to your side of the table and win, okay? And that's defensive style arm wrestling, where you're not focused on getting them down to the pin pad at all. You're focused on absorbing their energy and their power in a specific position. There's different defensive styles, okay? In a specific position where you're just going to hold them, lead them out till they get tired, and then you're going to go on the offense. That's totally different than counterattacking. That's totally different than hooking. The other example I was going to give you, we showed you with the strap, that Michael Todd arm wrestling strap, where he gets in the strap. That's his defensive style, okay? So when he's choosing his style, this is really important. When he's choosing his style, he's already thinking past the first match. He needs to slip out that first match in order to get into the strap for the second match. So that's how far you can take the thinking in terms of styles. Is think about that. He's coming up. He knows he's going to slip on the first match. He needs to get to the strap for the second match to employ the technique that he knows is going to beat that specific opponent. Okay, so those are the three different styles. That's the very first decision you have to make at the table. Once you choose your style, then you have to choose your technique, and that's the next video. Okay, so once you've chosen your style, once you decided whether you're going to attack, counterattack, or do a defensive style of arm wrestling match, okay, then you just got to choose your technique, okay? So it doesn't matter which style you choose, okay? You have to choose a technique that's going to fit into that. So, for instance, Kepa was going to do that hook. I know he's going to do it, just as a counterattack example, okay? So these are both those two elements together. This is choosing your style, choosing your technique. Choosing your style was the fact that I decided I was going to counterattack his move, okay? That was the first decision I made. The second decision is with what technique? And we already covered it, okay? So I know he's going to hook in towards me, okay? I chose to counterattack using that technique. So as he comes in, boom, I'm there, follow through, and hopefully win the match. But that's step two, is choosing your technique. So like I said, if I was going to attack, okay, into my strongest position, here's an example, okay? One of my strongest positions, I'll put it that way. Same thing. Let's say I didn't know Kepa, right? I've chosen my style. I don't know the guy. I want to win this match, okay? I decided, I'm going to attack. I'm going to put him into my strongest position. I've already decided that. Okay, what's my strongest position? That takes us to choice two. Choose your technique. We're right there, okay? So if I had to choose my technique, what's my strongest position? It's here. So I would hook. I try to get an inside hook, okay, with a low outside drag, okay? I drag back, level change, okay? And try to bring him into a position he probably hasn't normally defended against, and it's really tough once you get out here to stop that, okay? That would be an example of the technique that I would choose to attack. So hopefully that makes sense there. We'll go on to the next one. Okay, so now the third choice you have to make in terms of strategic choices when you're coming up to the arm wrestling table, you've already made the first two choices. You chose your style, whether to attack, counterattack, or defensive, okay? The second one, you're gonna choose your technique. What technique is gonna fit best into what you're trying to accomplish, okay? The third would be your setup. You have to choose the setup, okay? And here's what I mean by that, okay? The setup involves everything, your entire body, the entire body position. The positioning of your legs is part of the setup. The position of your hips is part of the setup. The positioning of your arm relative to the inside of your body is a big part of the setup. The distance between your hand and your chin, okay? The angle that you're taking. Are you pronated first? Are you somewhat supinated first? Are you going to be pulling back? Are you going to be hooking in, okay? There's going to be a maximal position in every single one of those techniques, okay? Whether that's if your elbow is on the front of the pad, is it in the back? Is it going from corner to corner, okay? Those are all setup concerns that are absolutely vital to pulling off a good arm wrestling technique. So if you're doing arm wrestling technique, okay, and you're going into any kind of different move, it's most important thing you can do is set up properly for that move, because you're going to have the best chance of winning if you set up exactly right, okay? Regardless of what technique that is, okay? So there's two different things. One is maximizing the effectiveness of that technique, okay? So even if you're top rolling, or if you're going to decide to do a press, okay? Or you're going to decide to do an inside hook, okay? If you set up with your arm in the right position and everything else correctly, it's going to give you the maximum leverage, the maximum chance of winning. Okay, so by setting up properly for that technique, that's choice number 3. You choose your style, you choose your technique, and then you choose the setup. Okay, those all go right together. Okay, so the better you set up, the better your chance of pulling off the technique that you're choosing. Okay, and then there's another thing, and I'm going to show you. this. This is a very interesting, very sneaky part of arm wrestling strategy that I want to put in during this part. So, Kev, I can have your arm for a second. Okay, faking and camouflaging, okay? Now, let's say I was going to do a top roll, and that's exactly what I'd already decided to do, okay? That would be, I might want to get pronated. Let's say I was just going to top roll out this way. That was going to be my move, okay? Let's say that was the decision I'd make, okay? So what you can do while you're doing the setup, you still want to get the best position you can get into to maximize your power and your leverage in order to do the move you're about to do. So if I was about to do that move, I'd get myself in the very best position I could get into to win with that particular move. Now, faking and camouflaging is really important. So Kev is a savvy arm wrestler too. If he knows what I'm going to do, he can counter me. So if he knows I'm going to pull outside, he could just press right through my arm and bring me down if he knew what that was going to do. So I would try not to give that away. So during the setup, here's a really important thing to do too, is during the setup, you can fake. So one thing I might try to do is this. I'm going to set up for the top roll. I'm going to get all my other position right, and then I'm just going to turn his wrist. I'm going to make it look like I'm setting up for a hook, okay? And he's going to think the same thing, okay? Set up for a hook, do some pulling in a direction you have no intention of pulling, okay? Or add a little side pressure at the get-go, or something that's totally opposite of what you're actually going to do, okay? Just like if you were going to press, okay? Give the guy the feeling that you're not going to press, okay? Even everything else being the same, okay? So that's what I mean. During the setup, not only should you set up exactly right for your technique, it also gives you a chance to throw off your opponent by not giving away what you're doing, and also kind of camouflaging and faking some moves too, so that they're thrown off. And that minimizes their chance to counterattack you. You have to make at the table. Once you made those first 3 choices, you chose your style, you chose your technique, okay, you chose the appropriate setup for the actual technique. Now it just comes down to execution, okay? It's about speed and execution and follow through. So those are the things I wanted to cover. That's like the 4th choice, all right? Just like you got your setup position, everything else being the same, okay? The most important thing from here would be to commit to the movement you've chosen. Commit to it 100%. So you're throwing all your power, all your speed into the movement that you've chosen. You can't be in between, okay? You can't be, well, I might hook or I might top roll on the start, and maybe, you can't be like that. You have to commit to one or the other. If you're going to press forward, get yourself in a position where you can drive the most power right away into that position. Okay, if you're going to hook, it's exactly the same thing. Drive all of your power into that move, commit to that move, and think about the fast execution of the movement. That doesn't matter whether you're countering, whether you're being defensive, or whether you're attacking. You should still be focused on getting to your move first. Okay, it might not always work out that way, but you don't want to finish second. Okay, you want to get to your move first. Okay, and then most importantly is just follow through with your movement. So once you commit to your movement, focus on following through. Now, there's a lot of transitions I'm going to show you later on in the video where you go to one technique, okay, if it doesn't work, you can come down and do a different technique. So you can be flexible. So even though you're committing 100% to a move, okay, that doesn't mean if you get stopped, you can't come back up and transition to another move. It just means really try to commit to that first move. You'll get the most out of it.